De Gaulle was very close to German intelligence. He had his own channels of communication with Canaris. He was a loyal Frenchman, but he was also a politician, and he cut a deal with the Jerrys to get back into power in '58. The Fifth Republic is basically Vichy. The intelligence structures of the Fifth Republic are basically Vichy. The Vichy boys came back in charge in Paris in '58. De Gaulle had cut a deal with the Jerrys. When the Jerrys wanted to lose de Gaulle, they set up a bunch of riots in Paris. As you know, Mr. Chairman, riots in Paris are always organised either by the Interior Minister to get rid of the President, or they're organised by the President to get rid of the Interior Minister. All riots in Paris are organised. And the Jerrys are organising riots at the moment in France. You can't have a riot in France unless it's organised, and it's just against the rules. If it didn't follow the rules, we'd have chaos, wouldn't we? All chaos in France is always organised by someone. The French are very good at organising chaos. The Macmillan German spy, he pushes EEC entry, he's blocked by de Gaulle. It was we who forced de Gaulle to say non, because our intelligence had got the goods on Charles, because we became aware after the war of his contacts with German intelligence. So we told Charles, if you do not block this British entry, we will go public on what we know about you. So Charles decided, sacre bleu. And then he gave that famous speech about the British being British and not Europeans. He was right about that. One of the few times de Gaulle told the truth after 1945. De Gaulle blocks us. We then get de Gaulle to block again in '67, so the Germans do two things. They get rid of de Gaulle, and they try to get rid of Harold Wilson, another German spy. He'd failed. Wilson had lost his nerve. They were going to install Mountbatten, who was going to take us in. Second attempt to take us in fails. Third attempt in '68 fails. Then in 1970 we have Edward Heath, and if you recall, Heath's election was set up by the German spy Roy Jenkins. So Roy Jenkins has a silly budget designed to damage Labour's chances in the 1970 general election. He's doing that in coordination with Admiral Canaris in order to get the Jerrys in through Heath in '70 in order to take us into the EEC. And that's how we ended up being in the EEC. We need to pull out rapidly. It'd be extremely nice, I shall make this point in my book, if someone could explain that we don't actually have to have expenditure cuts in areas like defence where we don't need them and or want them. We do not have to attack the Navy. We do not need cuts if we pull out of the EU. We're not in fact cutting public expenditure anyway, we're just slowing down the rate of increase, but we do not need public expenditure cuts that we don't want if we pull out of the EU, because the total cost of EU membership, according to the Treasury, is about £3.5 billion a week. That's to UK PLC, and a lot of that falls as a burden on the central government and some of it on local government. And if we pull out of the EC, the financial savings alone will be sufficient to sort out the deficit. It would be really nice to see Eurosceptics making that point. The media won't, but then the media are a bunch of dummies. My final comment, just to show how dumb the media are. We had a set of papers released on by that nice man, but a bit pro-European, Ken Clark, trying to pretend that David Kelly committed suicide by means which has never succeeded. Nobody's ever committed suicide by cutting a single ulnar artery. It doesn't work. And I had Al Jazeera on the phone on Friday morning. I commented on Al Jazeera on the Kelly assassination. And these guys just thought, they genuinely thought these papers had proved that Kelly had committed suicide. And I thought, how could you be so stupid? And I gave him the explanation and said he couldn't have taken coproximal tablets because the drugs are in the ratio of 10 to 1, as Dr. Owen knows, but in fact in the blood they were found in the ratio of just under 100 to 1, clearly ruling out tablets. So he couldn't have committed suicide. He never took a coproximal tablet, the ratio is wrong, the blood work proves conclusively he must have been murdered. He couldn't accidentally have swallowed, so there was no means of getting those drugs into his system other than by an injection. That, of course, the interview lasts 5 minutes. I explained why he'd been murdered. All of that is then deleted from the television, and all you get from me is 30 seconds of comment that makes me sound like a conspiracy theorist, which I'm not, as you know. The last thing I am is a conspiracy theorist. Typical wet, dumb, stupid, ill-informed, no offence to native Al Jazeera, nice people, but typically ill-informed media comment. It's very difficult to get anywhere in this country with a media that frankly at times shows the sort of naivety which would be worrying in a 5-year-old child. But there it is. I have overtaken my time, although in fairness I was